Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody here. Thank you for getting up early and joining us this morning. We got quite a few bills on the agenda, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask my friend, Chairman Prince, if he will open in prayer for us. What's that number?
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we thank you for this day, Father. We thank you for another opportunity to come together and do the business of this great state of Georgia. We ask that you be with us, give us your guidance, your wisdom, but most of all, your Son, Jesus. And it's his name we pray. Amen.
Well, thank you. The first bill we have on the agenda this morning, House Bill 907. I think we've heard this a couple times, and they've made some changes they requested in rules. I'm going to ask him if he will come up and tell us what the changes are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this is maybe the third time's the charm on this one. But so this is the funeral procession bill, and if you don't remember, it's just so when on a two-lane road, oncoming traffic needs to pull over on the side of the road. But the question was when can the traffic realize when the procession is over? So the request was to have some flashing lights incorporated into the procession, which we did. But then that became specifically just with the sheriffs and the police, which created two officers to be involved in it. And what the request was to eliminate that and to be able to have the funeral directors be able to have the lights at the end, or be able to do that as well, to be able to not tie up resources with the sheriff's department. So that is the changes that needs to take place, or it was the requested version of it. And but this bill that I have here is LC 394139S, and that's what was on the docket. It all happened pretty fast.
Give us that number again.
LC 394139S. Is that what y'all have?
No, actually, you've got the original. The sub we have that I think with the changes on it, which is in our packet, is LC 394209S.
Good. That's really good.
Here, let me. Yeah, this and that. Yeah, they gave us the sub, so you've got the original.
That's great.
So
that's good news, because I didn't know if we had to modify it after the fact. But so yes, that was the last request for it, and they just wanted to clear that up before they passed it through the rules.
All right, and I think that changes in line 23 on the bills in which both the lead and rear vehicles display flashing hazard lights.
That's right. Yes, sir.
So that was a change in the bill, and that's the sub we're working off of. We do have a question, number 2. Chairman Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarification, those two vehicles, they could be just vehicles in the procession, they're not required to be a funeral home vehicle. Is that correct? Because they'll tie up their assets, I'm sure, as well.
Well, the funeral home won't.
I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah.
He come in.
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
So it could be just any.
It could be anything, but the funeral home, from what I understand, they need to take ownership of it and make sure that the lights
last
are
car
happening.
in the past, those fast. Thank you.
Number 18, Representative McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess my question on the same line. So it's only going to be just two car lights flashing, or is it going to be, because normally in the procession everybody got their lights flashing.
That's
so
right.
When I didn't know how would you tell what was the last car?
It's going to be all of them. But the request was that was the big concern, was to make sure at least the last car is flashing, so that they know when they can stop from being pulled over and can continue on their way.
Okay.
But all of them should be flashing.
But yes, I know. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Number 25, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that to kind of their point, I'll just say this. I think the point here is that if somebody were to enter the roadway after all the flashing lights have stopped, they would no longer be in trouble.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, when the proper time is, I'll make a motion to pass.
Now would be the proper time. We have a motion and a second do pass. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Third time's a charm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
All right, the second bill, 978, we're going to hold that. They're not ready on that. They're working on a sub. All right, then the second measure, we got House Bill 1001, Chairman Perkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to take a point of personal privilege and thank you publicly. I noticed there was 5 vehicles out front that I can take ownership of. I know we're coming up on Valentine's Day, and I know you love me like a brother, and I think I'll take the silver one in the middle. It's very kind of you.
Well, I think Representative Smith down here, that's his people down there, so I think he can probably arrange that for you for a nominal fee.
Thank you. So I bring before you consideration HB 1001. A few weeks ago, there was a storm down in my neck of the woods, and I left the Capitol. I went back to the house to check on the farm, worked on the farm a little bit, make sure I got all my cows hemmed up, make sure didn't blow my fences down, and check on my wife, and got up early the next morning in that 4 range to come back to the Capitol to do our duty. And I got halfway back, and I happened to be at Buc-ee's, and where you get a little fuel, and it was at that point that I realized I'd left my billfold in my work breeches. I had my driver's license and my credit cards. Now, I had some more money in the truck, and so I could fill up on gas, but I didn't have my driver's license. So everybody on this panel has had that feeling before. In fact, I felt in my pockets before I came here, do I actually have my license with me today? And sometimes I'll leave it in another vehicle, or sometimes it's in my other suit. And we know how that is. That's how it is. But technically, according to Georgia code, you got to have your driver's license with you when you're driving. So I may or may not have had my license with me a time or two without while I'm driving, inadvertently. But I got to thinking on the way back. I said, I'm one of the people, and there are almost 300,000 of us in the state of Georgia that have in our wallet on our phone, issued by the Department of Driver Services, a driver's license. I could take this right here and go through TSA at the airport at Hartsfield and fly to our nation's capital without having actually the physical license, Georgia driver's license, that this is sufficient to show that I am who I am, and I can get on an airplane and fly. House Bill 1001 does just one thing, and it turns a may to a shall. And that is on line 27 of this. So if I were to present my digital driver's license that's in my wallet, along with the 300,000 other people in the state, or 290 or whatever it is that has it, that will be sufficient for proof of driver's license. That's what the bill does. We have this with our insurance card. So I think the next iteration is possibly to show it on license as proof of driver's license.
Well, apparently you didn't explain it very well. I've got the board that's lit up. So, and is it possible that Sharon had your wallet that day?
It could be possible. It could be, but she did not.
All right. Number 25, Chairman Wiedauer.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to let you know that I think you're off the hook with the car outside, because after that testimony, I'm pretty sure he has too many vehicles. And
I would agree with you, sir.
I like the bill. Thank you.
Number 24, Representative Ridley.
Thank you. To my friend, I I'm not asking this for personal reasons. I'm asking it for my friend to the left here. Could you explain 39 and 40, line 39 and 40, because he's really worried about what he has on his phone if he has to hand it over to somebody.
Well, and there again, so some of my friends will have concerns about, and I don't honestly. So I have my wife. My wife has access to my phone, and she could see my text and my emails and such. So I've got I
Could
got
we
a
strike
clean
that
conscience.
from the record, please?
I have a clean conscience, but there is some concern in releasing your telecommunication device to someone else, and there is concern for that.
But to be clear, you also, you can have your hard copy with you.
That's correct.
And hand them that if you don't want to hand them your phone.
That's
This
exactly
is
right.
just allow either or.
Either or.
So,
Yeah.
all right, number 22, Representative Montahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman, for the bill. I see great need for it. I mean, as you know, I do driver's education, and all the time we've got
I am
young
aware.
drivers and 15-year-olds that don't keep physical copies of things very well. But we have found that they like this app. I think it's called DDS to Go, and so this is a well-needed bill. This will help these younger kids as we transition further down into a digital world. But I do have some concerns. One of those you've already alleviated for me, which was the no person shall be compelled to release their telecommunications device. I would want to make sure, and it seems like that would be so, that even if a person does release their telecommunication device to a law enforcement officer, that they are not consenting to a search or a seizure by giving that. Now,
Yeah.
I'm no lawyer, so I can't tell you whether or not this bill does it or not. I would just ask that you keep that in mind as you move forward with the bill. I think that's important. The second comment that I would make, and this was lines 27 to 30, is shall accept the presentation of a driver's license in the electronic format issued by the department. I think the question becomes, if someone issues you a digital license and I take a screenshot of said digital license, that is the license that was issued by the department, and that is an official display of a official license. But do we need to, do we need to tighten that up any? And I don't know. I can't tell you, but maybe the department has told you some information there that clarifies that.
Okay, so I'm going to try and get to the point of what I think your question is.
Okay.
So actually, a screenshot. I don't know if this is appropriate.
We're going to phone a friend.
Phone a friend.
Okay. Yeah.
Good morning, Chairman and committee members. My name is Shavonda Leslie. I'm the Director of Governmental Affairs and Communications for Georgia Department of Driver Services. For a point of clarity, DDS to Go is our app, but it does not provide you your digital driver's license. We are working with two vendors, Apple and Google. So you can get that app by going to your Apple wallet and your Google wallet, very similar to what you do when you board a plane or if you put your credit card in your Apple or Google wallet. And the screenshot is not the same as the information that we have in those particular vendor apps, wallets. Because there's once you download it, you'll see the card. Solely just the card. But then if you hit the I, your picture and your information that's on your driver's license is contained within that.
Right here.
Right. Very
I've
similar
got it
to
right
that.
here. So if I hit what now? I'm sorry.
If you go into your wallet and hit the I, you'll be able to show that information.
Okay.
For I for information, that information is the same information that's on the front of your license is also on your digital credential.
Any further questions for Ms. Leslie?
But now, I just to be sure, and we'll figure that out.
Yeah,
Technology
I'll show
issues
you.
with, I'm a millennial, I can't figure it out, and that's, on me. But I just want to make sure that nobody could accept just some, screenshot copy image on their photos or something like that. They'd have to use that app here to be able to get that.
That is the intent of the agency.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Number 18, Representative McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess, you know, I love it because I have it too. My only question that I think I have is showing this to, when I go to TSA and do it, you know, they just have a screen. You know,
That's
they have equipment that I can just lay it on and
That's right.
it reads it.
That's right.
But you know, law enforcement, do they have that equipment already? I'm just trying to make sure that we don't put an extra burden on them getting the equipment that they don't already have.
So, and there again, thank you for the question, and I don't want to put any undue problems for law enforcement. And I think we will. So there is technology. I recall that our DDS commissioner testified in the joint hearing regarding electronic driver's license and where the technology is going, and we're going to see great leaps in that. For instance, perhaps law enforcement, when they pull someone over, can actually send that, I don't know, air something or other that goes to the vehicle, and they can know really who they're going to talk to before they get to the vehicle, which is going to be it's just going to be wonderful for our law enforcement. My intention is not to provide additional problems, but I have everything on this electronic license that I have on my physical copy, with the exception, I will say, of weight that is not on this one, and might possibly be inaccurate on my hard copy as well. I will neither confirm nor deny. But everything else is the same that is on my hard copy that is available in electronic format.
I just wanted to make I didn't want them to have equipment.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll take one more. Representative Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based on what Representative McLean said, what is law enforcement saying about this?
I think it might be signed up.
We've got someone signed up to speak to that.
Thank you.
Next.
I have in my conversations with, and they'll have the official position for their group. In my conversations with my sheriffs and some of my law enforcement friends, they didn't have a problem, but I'm not going to speak for them.
All right, that's the last question. We do have someone signed up, Mike Mitchell with the Georgia Sheriff's Association. If you'll come to the podium, state your name and who you're.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Mike Mitchell, Georgia Sheriff's Association. I appreciate having a few minutes to address this particular measure. Up front, I just want the committee to know that we are neutral at this point on this particular piece of legislation. As a driver's license holder myself, I like the idea. I think it's great for business purposes. I just don't know if we're quite to the point to where we're ready to do it for law enforcement purposes. And I guess our concern from a law enforcement perspective, if the only option for the driver is the phone, just concerned about that from an officer safety standpoint. So, you try to imagine interacting with a driver roadside and having to handle someone's personal device on top of everything else that's going on. So we would have concern about that from an officer safety standpoint. We also would have concern about being accused of damaging the device. I don't see anything in the legislation that would release the officer from any liability for being accused of damaging the device. I think Representative Montahan, you mentioned the concern about unlawful search. Obviously, we would have concern about being accused of unlawfully going through the phone or going through the device. And I don't know how y'all's phones are set up, but another thing that's a concern is the phone timing out. For my phone in particular, I've got like a 5-second or 10-second timeout. So I may be in the middle of something working on my phone and it times out on me. So there's some concern of, having to go back and forth with the driver, getting them to re-input their password to open the device back up so you can look at the driver's license. Having to zoom in on the driver's license and just the time that takes. Also, fatality regs, identifying who the driver is in a fatality crash, and notifying loved ones and next of kin. If you can't get into the device and that's the only option that you have at your disposal, then that's certainly going to make it hard on law enforcement. So those are just some concerns that we have on this particular bill. We are neutral. We'll continue to watch this if it progresses its way through, but our concerns will remain officer safety, damage to the device, being accused of going through the device, and then just notify next of kin in crashes where you got to know who the person is. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have some questions. Number 22, Representative Montahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Trying to get my thoughts together for the gentleman. Me and Mike have, Mr. Mitchell, have worked together for many years, even prior to my service here in the Assembly, and he's always been kind to me and great to help. I do have a question for you, and that is, would the Sheriff's Association, would they be opposed to adding a code section or adding a section that explicitly says that the release of a device for the for identification purposes would not be consent? Would not be a consent for search and seizure? Is that something that y'all would be comfortable with? So, in effect, if someone is in possession of the device, if an officer is in possession of the device, that would not be anything found during that period of time which they're making that verification of identity could be used against them going forward. I have some privacy concerns. I think my constituents would as well. Handing over a phone, which is very personal, is that something that y'all would have issue with?
I think it's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
Still, just the fact of being accused of it, even though you haven't necessarily done that, and just the spotlight that law enforcement is under right now, this is just an additional liability, in our opinion. And just the accusation, having to overcome that accusation.
Do you think
is concerning to us?
And do you think by creating a prohibition of that, do you think that would help to clear that up? Saying, look, we can't even use information gained during identity verification on a phone. So, there should be no issue in handing your phone over to us for that purpose.
Yeah, we'll be happy to take a look at whatever language the committee decides to come up with.
Okay.
All right, we're going to take one more question, and I think from what we've heard so far, I think we'll get the author to work with the Sheriff's Association. Let's come up with some language that kind of satisfy Representative Montahan's concerns as well, if we can do that. So this would be hearing only, so one more, Representative Kennard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The discussion we just had, I think, is addressed in lines 36, 37, and 38. It says any person utilizing a wireless telecommunications device to display his or her license in electronic format in order to comply with subsection A of this code section shall not be considered to have consented to a search of such device by law enforcement. Ledge Counsel just brought that to my attention.
All right. If the author would like to address that.
Well, thank you. And there again, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We already have this. And honestly, so most of the time, our law enforcement provides tremendous grace as it comes to. So I may or may not have been pulled over for a traffic offense at some point in the near distant past. when I also, my license might have been in another vehicle that I probably didn't need to own. And the law enforcement official said, is this truck registered in your name, sir? Because I said, man, I don't have it, but you know, I got a copy of it. And he said, if it's registered in your name, I could look it up. And he pulled up, went back, pulled up his, but this bill is just to eliminate the gray area. You have got to have a copy of your physical license with you, or you have violated this section. We have gone part way to say that law enforcement may consider that you have a digital driver's license, and that fulfills this requirement. All my bill says is takes the ambiguity out and says, have a copy or this, or you have violated the provisions of this. So I expect that most people are going to have a copy of their driver's license with them. I expect that will continue to be the case. But this is just to take the ambiguity out of the law and have less of a burden for law enforcement. So I thank you for considering it. I thank you for hearing it. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, and we will work with that, come back. We have another meeting Friday and next Tuesday, so we make
Thank you,
sure
sir.
we give it another hearing. At this time, we're going to jump down to House Bill 1150. Chairman Collins.
Bless your heart, bless your heart.
You was looking anxious over there.
Thank you. Got another meeting to get to. Mr. Chairman, it's always a pleasure to be with you in this committee here today to present House Bill 1150. We're working off LC 394165. This is a monumental piece of legislation I present to you here this early morning hour. I'll tell you the genesis behind this bill. I got a phone call from one of our esteemed colleagues, Chairman Dickey, during the interim, and he had a call from his sheriff about the window tinting violations. These are people that are pulled over who have been seen as someone who is violating the window tint statute here in our state. And upon a conversation with his sheriff, it was brought to his attention that when someone is cited for this violation, it is a fingerprintable offense. And we had a conversation, and I said, well, that just doesn't seem right. So I called our friends at the Sheriff's Association, Terry Norris, and we talked about this. And he said, yes, this has been an issue with several sheriffs around the state. So I bring this piece of legislation to you. It's very simple. It just simply removes the window tint violation as a fingerprintable offense. I talked to the AG's office. Sometime during the 80s, this offense was put on a list of other offenses throughout the state by the Attorney General at the time that simply made it a fingerprintable charge, which means if someone was charged with violating this, they had to be hauled into the sheriff's office, hauled into the police department, and fingerprints taken. Now, obviously, over the years, that message has not gotten out to law enforcement because an overwhelming majority of the municipalities, the county sheriffs, they are not fingerprinting people for this violation. So this is just basically a cleanup. I think the Sheriff's Association is here to speak to this bill. And Mr. Chairman, that's pretty much the genesis of this bill.
Well, thank you for bringing the bill. We do have one question, I think, Chairman Wiedauer. Who's 24?
Oh, it's me. Oh, I was just gonna say, at the proper time, I'll make a motion.
We do have a member signed up to speak. Mike Mitchell, if you'll come to the podium again.
Yeah, so we totally support this. When you think about having to fingerprint someone, that means taking them into custody, putting them in handcuffs, taking them to the sheriff's office, fingerprinting them. You have to secure the vehicle, which is on the roadside. Seems over the top to us for window tint violations, so we certainly support this.
Seeing no questions, now would be the proper time.
Make a motion, do pass.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. You
Mr.
got your
Chairman,
bill.
it's always a pleasure to be before your committee.
Absolutely. Glad to have you.
Should you have any business before the Public Safety Committee, you feel free to approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your service. All right, at this time, we have one of the governor's floor leaders with us, and he's carrying a very important piece of legislation, and I see why they gave him this measure to bring before us. House Bill 1058. It explains, it's a very complex measure, and I know that's why they brought you to explain that for us this morning.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you can see to my right here, this gentleman to my right's here for Representative McLean to make sure he behaves. So I just want to make sure he sees the man in blue to my right. This bill, House Bill 1058, LC 394012, is what stands between us and lunch. And it's a very complex bill that we'll go through. And basically, it's codifying federal guidelines for the motor carrier vehicle division that happens every year. And I guess the torch was passed to me this year that changes one thing. From 2023 to 2024. It just brings the motor carrier division into compliance with federal guidelines of the hazardous material regulations that come down from the federal government. That's the bill.
Apparently you didn't explain that very well. We do have a question over here, number 22.
That's me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I just have one question. You said this is the only thing that's holding us up between lunch, this and lunch. What time do you normally eat lunch? Because it's 8:32 in the morning.
This is how complex this bill is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We have no further questions. Do we have a motion? We have a motion. Have a second. Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. And the floor leader does have one other measure. I'm going to amend the agenda. House Bill 1193. You ready to present that
Yes,
this morning
sir.
while you're here?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this is also brought to me by the Department of Public Safety. This bill is something it's got a lot of cleanup in it. It's a bill that
And we don't have a copy before us, and that's my fault. But it's going to be hearing only on this measure.
Okay.
Just explain. Yes, hearing only.
You hear me all the time, don't you, Representative McLean? HB 1193 is again a public safety, a Department of Public Safety bill. It is one that's got a lot of clearing up in it as far as some language, some old language. But the main part of the bill is one to save not only the taxpayers' money, but also save the Department of Public Safety from having to do these permits of amber lights every 5 years, because it is costing them money to issue these permits. If you'll look on, you don't have a bill, so you can't. Basically, in this hearing, it's going that it talks about all the things that the amber lights are to be used for, and basically it allows people that are coming into the state and also people that use amber lights not to have to go through the public safety department to get the permit, that $2 permit that they had to get every 5 years. So it's doing away with that. It's something like we did with the Georgia Forestry, to getting away from.
And they're still required to have that light. They just don't have to pay the permit.
That's what lines that you don't have 77 through 122 will list everything that the amber lights are required to do. Something that in this hearing, I'll let you know, in line 124, 126, it talks about those that do not use the amber light, there will be a violation of a misdemeanor. And if you're caught using an amber light in commencing of a felony, it will be a felony for using that amber light. This doesn't change anything with the red and blue permits that are required to have for those that use the blue for policing, or those for volunteer firemen that use the red lights. Those still will be required to go through the Department of Public Safety for that $2 permit. This just takes the amber lights that are used on golf carts, tow trucks, those that are escorting oversized loads from having to go through the public safety. Those are coming into the state on our highways.
Well, thank you for that. And we will, like I said, we will have another meeting Friday.
Okay.
So we'll try to get that measure on and have the copy of the bill in front of everybody. But pretty simple measure, and we appreciate you for explaining that this morning, where we can go ahead and probably move on that Friday.
Okay. Thank you, committee.
At this time, we've got a department bill, Representative New, House Bill 1100. She will come to the podium, and if she wants to bring somebody with her to the podium, it will be fine.
I brought a crew, sir. Good morning. Thank you, Chairman and members. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today about HB 1100. The LC number is 394210S. This is a Department of Revenue agency bill, and this is Austin Gibbons with the Department of Revenue. He's the Director of External Affairs. I've also got Robert Worrell with the Department of the Department of Revenue Motor Vehicles Division Director. I also have Matt Christie, Motor Vehicles Staff Attorney with the Department of Revenue, and then I also have Shavonda Leslie from the DDS. She's the Director of Government Affairs with me today. So
You've got the A-team.
Excuse me?
You've got the A-team with you.
I do, thank goodness. So this bill does 5 things. Section 1 allows the department to send electronic notices or emails, or the Georgia Tech Center to send customers who opt in to receive notices. So customers wishing to receive paper notices will still receive those, but if you choose to go electronically, you can opt in. These notices could include suspension, cancellation, or revocation of your title or your registration. So there will be a provision for the DOR if they become aware that you didn't receive your electronic delivery, so that they can also notify the customer in another manner. So it's just emailing if you opt in. It is just an option. Section 2, 3, and 5 clarify that all vehicles titled to a government entity will have a plate labeling it is a government vehicle. This does not apply to law enforcement at all, and this is for transparency and tax dollars. Citizens deserve to know that a government vehicle and the tag need to match who owns that vehicle. Again, it does not apply to law enforcement at all. Section 4, this legislation allows trailers to be included in the definition of fleet for vehicles that can have their registrations renewed as bulk. To define bulk, you must have 100 motor vehicles for this treatment. And this would speed up the renewal process for customers and counties. An example of fleet would be U-Haul, Avis, that sort of thing. It does sound like it might be a Clay Perkle thing. Section 6, this legislation provides statutory authority for the Department of Revenue to allow electronic transfer of titles. This is setting the foundation for the future of e-titles for Georgia. Our motor vehicle agencies around the country are already making a move to e-titling. It is the way of the future, and the department wants to go ahead and put down the foundation for the future for Georgia in e-titling. For example, in the future, if I wanted to sell a car to Chairman Corbett, in an idealistic way, as soon as he purchased the vehicle from me, I could get on my smartphone and transfer the title immediately. So that's what they're moving forward to. This is just setting the foundation for that. And this moves us away from paper titles and gives the option of e-titling for the future for Georgia. Section 7 allows the Georgia Department of Driver Services, the DDS, to also send electronic notices to driver's license renewals by email. And this, again, is an opt-in option. If you still want to get your notice that your driver's license needs to be renewed in the mail, you'll still get that. It's only if you opt in for emails. This is what this bill does. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about it, and if you have any questions, I'll take them at this time.
We do have a question, Representative Montahan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for indulging me this morning. We're going through quite a many bills. I do have a question. This is probably going to be for Austin or the others that are here with you today. How many, what would you say, even a ballpark percentage of the notifications that y'all send out are suspension, cancellation, or revocation of vehicle title?
I'm going to look straight to Robert, who will have the operational knowledge there.
Good morning. I wouldn't have the exact percentages, but it is a substantial amount. Quite a few are the insurance suspensions. I think we do about 900,000 letters per year, which is really the bulk of our suspensions or revocations that go out. The other options are usually, situations where there's a fraudulent title or something like that, fraudulent issuance of a registration, which is a very small percentage. So I would say the vast majority would be the insurance letter violations.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I want to posit maybe for some thinking to the committee, and that is when we're talking about the suspension or cancellation or revocation of a vehicle title or registration, it could create legal issues for that person if they are not notified, right? So there becomes a level in which, in my opinion, maybe that's not the opinion of the committee, but in my opinion, that they do need to be notified in as many ways as possible. And so things like renewals, which are fairly common, that would be a great thing maybe to just make digital only. But there may be somewhere in this bill that you may want to add that if it is a suspension or revocation or cancellation, that then it would receive a mail copy as well, just so somebody who gets pulled over unknowingly, because insurance revocation now has criminal legal issues, towing of the vehicle, if it's not registered or for whatever reason, that could create issues for Georgians. And so we may want to have some level of notification for these folks, regardless of whether or not they opt in for electronic service. I do see where this is going, and I think it's a great move, but I just have those issues that we don't want to get people in this criminal legal system if we don't have to by proper notification. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Representative, and we're very aware of that. That's why in the disclaimer for opting into electronic notifications, if you look on lines 34 through 37, we are explicitly stating that it could include suspension, revocation, or cancellation. And also there are provisions in the bill, and I can get you line numbers after, that relate to if we become aware that delivery failed, and also for if we become aware that they have withdrawn their consent for electronic notice.
One more, yes.
I would only say that I think for most folks, if you're like me on this Apple iPhone we were toying with earlier, we click the terms of agreement and we just scroll and we hit okay, next. There's not oftentimes where we are actually reading, and I'm ashamed to say that myself. We don't read these things, and so I'm afraid that your intent is great, and I think it's a wonderful bill and a great step in the right direction. But I do have some issues that we're going to wrap people up in this system. And we're talking about hundreds of dollars in fees, right? We're talking about getting your car towed and tow fees and lot fees. You're wrapping people up in a lot of things that we may not want to wrap them up into. So I would just ask maybe to think about that as you move forward.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Number 25, Chairman Weedow.
Thanks, Chairman. I appreciate the bill. Also, I deal with the department a good bit on the appropriations, just for the benefit of the committee. When the AY the amended budget, we often are making adjustments to simply postage because the federal government continues to raise postage on a regular basis. Even solicited the question of can we just buy a million forever stamps, But anyway, I appreciate the bill. Certainly understand where Representative Montana's coming from, but I think this is definitely a step in the right direction, especially to wrap our hands around the the growing costs of mailing all this stuff out repetitively. But thank you.
And Chairman, that's the exact reason that Department of Driver Services asked to add Section 7 to this bill after it had been first read.
Seeing no further questions, I think it's a great bill, moving Georgia forward in the right direction. The previous bill that Chairman Perkle had, the electronic driver's license, that's the future. We can drag our feet or we can be proactive, and I appreciate you bringing this measure. And I think Chairman Prince has a motion.
Motion do pass.
We have a motion do pass. All right, let me take a second on the bill. Got a motion and a second. State your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would ask for the committee, given the timing here, I would just ask that we strike on lines 36, may include suspension, cancellation, or revocation of vehicle title, or.
You want to strike that?
Yeah, so in effect, I want to make sure that people have to receive those notices by mail. I mean, I get the rest. I understand receiving notifications for renewals and others, but I want to make sure that people who have a insurance, I've had this happen. I've got a fleet of cars, and Mr. Chairman, if I may, I've had them to where we missed one and we got insurance canceled on that thing. I was very appreciative of the letter I got to make sure that we could get it back in good shape and upstanding way. I would just be afraid that we are going to wrap people up with a misdemeanor or more if we don't strike suspension cancellation. I mean, there's going to be people who get wrapped up in this, and I'm just.
Number 25, Chairman Weedow.
So just for a conversation on the potential amendment here, Representative Monahan, I agree with the concern. Where you're trying to strike that, I disagree with.
Well, maybe I'm wrong there.
Where you're striking it, that is the disclaimer that they're checking off. With what you're really, I think your intent here is if you're, and maybe the better amendment might be that if, and this would be somewhere else in the bill, because I think that disclaimer you're still going to have to check off on. If you're opting in to know that these things might come to you electronically. So you're acknowledging that, whether they read it or not. That taking the liability off them. A better suggestion might be somewhere else in the bill suggests that should these notifications be for suspension, cancellation, or revocation, that an additional attempt is made outside of the electronic format.
I'm with that right there. Let's do that amendment.
Well, let's
That's a great amendment.
If Jenna could weigh in on that and tell us where we need to insert that amendment.
If either take all of section 1 out, because that's sort of, I believe, the intent, and for these kind of notifications, or to say that they can only do notifications for renewals or whatever, and limit it. Because that is, yeah, you're correct. Taking it out of the notice is not doing what you're trying to do. So you would just say that they can only do notifications for renewals. That's what it sounds like. So it's either take out one altogether, because that's the intent is for, it is for suspensions, revocations, and cancellations. So, or just say that those communications are limited to anything but cancellations, revocations, because it already says if you opt in and you don't get it, or it bounces back, they're gonna send you a bill.
They're going to send it anyway. Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to make the amendment that my colleague has, if that gets to the heart of it, and maybe that's not the will of the committee, but I'm just doing my due diligence here to make sure that we're protecting people back home from things that they may or may not be,
Personally, I think we're covered in what you're saying. If they do not acknowledge that they've received that, they've got a way to appeal it, and you will send an additional notification. So we have a motion for an amendment. Do we have a second on the amendment? Second the amendment. All right, we have a motion and a second. Yeah.
Yep, let's write it out.
So I think what, line 26, notice required by the department upon owner pursuant to 2 or 3 of this title for renewals. That's it, right? And then you change the notice. It's already covered that if it bounces back and they don't want it, they don't have to get it. That's in the bill. So if you're concerned about revocations, cancellations, and you don't want them doing electronic notice at all for that, then you need to limit it on line 26, and then we'll change the disclosure because you're not saying revocation anymore. So it's only for renewals, is what your request sounds like.
Should read that for the committee.
I would like DOR to weigh in on what they're trying to do. I think we're basically gutting what we're trying to do, what the intent.
Yeah, so the initial insurance letter isn't actually a revocation or suspension. It's a notice of a 30-day time frame in which they need to comply before the suspension occurs. So it is a possibility for an electronic notice to go out initially, and then subsequently on the actual suspension, a physical letter be mailed if that's the will of the committee.
And that's the way the bill is presently, correct? Without
It is not the way it's written right now. I was kind of presenting that as an option if that's the,
okay, I think that gets to where we need to be if that's, yes. Jenna, did you understand?
Lack of insurance, I'm not sure what that's called, like off the top of your head, do you know what that's called, like lack of insurance?
It's an insurance lapse notice. So essentially, it notifies the taxpayer that they have a lapse and that they would need to take some action, whether it's canceling their registration or contacting your insurance company to fix any issues before the suspension occurs. So they have 30 days in which to do that before the actual suspension is applied to their vehicle record. So, and that's one notice at this time. I was saying it's a possibility to do a subsequent notice.
Okay. In a lot of this change that's come up, I'm going to withdraw the vote on this and ask them to get with DOR. Can we do that? And come up with the language that does what we're talking about and where we make sure we get it right, and we'll do it Friday if that'll work. So,
Sounds
all
good.
right, so. We got one other measure I want to try to get to this morning. She's been waiting very patiently for us, and I would like to get to that.
Thank you.
Measure. So yeah, we will. If we can get that language by Friday on a sub, we'll. Thank you. All right, Representative Neal, House Bill 1054. You got a substitute? Yes, please. All right, if you will present your bill. We're on a hard stop, so we're
Okay.
didn't expect that much time on that bill. On a couple of bills, didn't expect that much time this morning. So you never know.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. So thank you so much. Thank you to the committee. Thank you to the chair. Today I bring to you House Bill 1054, the traffic signature bill. You have a substitute in front of you. Originally, this bill was designed to do a few things: reduce negative encounters between law enforcement and citizens, save taxpayer dollars, free up officers for more pressing, high-priority calls. Originally, my effort was to do just what we spoke about today from the other chairman, where we are trying to reduce fingerprintable offenses and trying to make this process easier for officers on the road. I turned my attention to the specific code section which this bill addresses, 40-13-2.1. Even when I was policing, this practice was used by officers that seems to have fallen by the wayside for some reason, not sure why. Many don't know that this is or can be an option to simply write refuse to sign on the ticket and send the citizen on their way. An arrest is not necessarily necessary. So currently the process, you get a ticket, you have to pay a fine, go to court, or if you you might end up going to jail for failure to sign said ticket, depending on what law enforcement officer you encounter or the jurisdiction you might pass by. So if you get stopped in Chattahoochee Hills, which there should be a letter of support in your folder from them, you'll get a refuse to sign and you can go about your business. If you don't stop in an area such as that, the chance of you going to jail for a lower level offense is increased simply because you're just in a jurisdiction, probably one county over. We are trying to fix that discrepancy and make it uniform and standardize this practice into law. Now, the refuse to sign process, if you refuse to sign, as opposed to the original process as mentioned, it triggers a different path. So currently, if you refuse to sign, you don't have the option to prepay anymore, but you will have to show up in court, and you will get a failure to appear if you don't show up, and your license will be suspended. That is currently what happens if you refuse to sign, but that is a trade-off as opposed to going to jail. The biggest benefit when it comes to this aspect is the safety aspect of it for the officers. We found that the conflict has happened when the moment of choice between signing or not signing. And me and a lot of other partners that support this bill feel that officers should not have to risk their lives over a lower level traffic ticket. Additionally, even when I was policing, if I arrested somebody, I arrested them for a defective ticket, a defective equipment infraction, or if I was working as a detective and I arrested you for murder. When you go into the jail, you cost the taxpayers the same amount of money. And we feel that when it comes to the jails, and they're already overcrowding it presently, those spots in jail should be reserved for those people that have the most heinous of crimes. So moving forward, with all things considered, I want to thank my community partners and my co-sponsors of this bill who support this concept: Chairman Hitchens, Vance, Matt Reeves, Scott Holcomb, the Chiefs of Police, Georgia Sheriffs, Georgia Municipal Association, Association of County Commissioners, Department of Driver Services, Chattahoochee Hills, Mayor, City Manager, Chief of Police, and also the Department of Public Safety, which already encourages this practice for their officers presently. And they have also stated that they support this bill as well. All this bill simply does is simply adds refuse to sign as a matter of law and gives officers a de-escalated option and a way to ensure everyone goes home safe at the end of the night. And I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, I guess first thing that jumps out at me, the difference in the sub and what we had in our packet originally was the removal of the first class notification by mail. And in light of what we just heard with the last bill is concerned about a notification.
Absolutely.
Explain that.
Yes, thank you for the question. So currently on your uniform traffic citation, that is the notice, and it's actually indicated on the bottom that it is notice. That was just an error of legislative counsel. That line was not supposed to be added to begin with. So we literally just cleaned up that aspect of it. That was not supposed to be in the original
So
bill.
that's not standard procedure now. When they get a citation, if they don't, it's sent a notification in the mail as
No,
well to
so
appear in court?
on the citation, the traffic ticket at the bottom, it says this is your
To appear in
notification.
court at what
Absolutely.
day? So you don't have to send that?
Right, and
Okay.
so that's not gonna be an additional cost, and I've already checked with DDS, we do not have to change the traffic citation to do this bill.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Number 25, Chairman Weedow.
Is there a place anywhere they can opt in electronically? Just curious.
All right. All right, this will now be the proper time. Do we have a second? I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. And thank you all for coming. We're 2 minutes early. Thank you for your patience. And what? I think it's another committee supposed to be here at 9. We had a hard stop.
I can get it to you.
Not the school committee, because it's a subcommittee, special committee, to hear the rent costs, not the low THC. We have a special committee on low THC, we have a special one. Yeah, this one's on that. See y'all later. Yes, ma'am. Okay, and that's for your protection. And that's fine. Where do I go? Go to your. So there's an instructor getting. Okay, yeah, so. Well, that's not in this committee. Okay. I looked under my iPhone. That's why I was like, I'm like, yes, ma'am. Right, but I don't think we haven't brought it to the full committee. I'll have to look and see. I don't remember the bill number, but I gotta get busy. We'll get this call. Tell them. The leadership people that are, Chuck
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're running just a little behind, but we'll go ahead and get started. We are hearing one bill today, House Bill 598 by Representative Brent Cox, and we will invite Representative Cox to either come to the podium or sit if you prefer, and the floor is yours. Help me. I think that does it.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
So we're going over House Bill 598, which is LC 365531. This bill, in the simplicity, is basically removing several organizations from the amateur status for safety reasons so that we regulate and protect the athletes. If you'll go into page 2, which would be lines 23, 4, 5, 6, and 28, we're removing International Sport Kickboxing Karate Association, also known as ISKA, the World Kickboxing Association, United States Kickboxing Association, International Sports Combat Federation, and International Kickboxing Federation. Also further down on page 3, lines 46 through 49 and 51, removing the same names. And the question that probably first would come up, why are we removing those names out of here? The main reason is safety. So we have athletes in the amateur space that we need to make sure that we're having proper blood work, eye exams, pre-fight physicals. We need to make sure we have doctors and EMTs at the events, ambulances at the events, to ensure not if, but when injuries occur, that these individual athletes are protected. At this point, where we currently sit, it would be, and I have this form here, which I can get to y'all if you would like it, but it's from the Secretary of State's office. It's a martial arts sanctioning organization, and basically what would occur is that the associations that we've removed would become regulated. They then go on the Secretary of State's website, and they get this form filled out so that they're appropriately regulated by the Secretary of State's office here in Georgia. And I yield to any questions y'all may have.
Okay, thank you so much for a good presentation. We do have 2 questions. Representative or Secretary Earhart.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I don't know the first thing about regulating kickboxing, but I do have just a couple of questions. So what you're saying is by allowing these particular organizations to remain with amateur status, that there is not a requirement or a regulation that these safety features that you mentioned be in place? Did I understand that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay, and why these particular organizations? What is it? Do we have a problem in the state with injury and injury to these athletes at an amateur status? Are folks being injured and there aren't the resources there at these events to take care of them? I'm just a little confused.
Correct. Yeah. So basically, if kickboxing, obviously, there's many blows to the head coming from a coaching perspective, concussion protocol, and a lot of the things that we will deal with. I think it's very important that we have the appropriate, like even in high school sports, we have to have EMTs on site, doctors, ambulance service, and all kinds of other features as we participate in high school athletics. As it relates to this, that doesn't currently exist. So because of the vulnerability that the athletes could succumb to based on certain blows, kickboxing specifically, we just want to make sure that we protect those athletes. For the record, on the International Sports Kickboxing Association, ISKA, actually approves regulating the industry as well. So there's a letter from some time past. I think that's important to note. But
Do you
it's
have
just-
any
it's-
feedback from, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if I may, do you have any feedback from the other organizations? Are they also wanting regulation?
Well, two of the, currently, one of the organizations is not active. However, that name could become active. Two of them, not active currently is the United States Kickboxing Association, which is line 25. 26 and 28 are similar groups. So that's sports combat and kickboxing. I do not have an answer to their feedback on it or on the World Kickboxing Association, which is line 24K. So I don't have feedback on theirs as well, but I can see what kind of feedback we can get.
And if I may, one last follow-up question.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to understand why we're, and I understand blows to the head. I do. I know that can happen with a number of different
Sure.
types of sports, not just kickboxing. But do the same risks not exist with some of these other organizations and sports? I guess the wrestling and the karate, and I just see other ones on here that aren't being selected out.
Sure. Well, you have boxing, Georgia High School Athletics, the NCAA. I mean, they have certain guidelines, which, like I said, through Georgia High School Sports Course, the NCAA, you're going to have these individuals on site anyway. We just want to make sure we have the proper support, because I think the kickboxing industry has great potential within our state. And by doing this, I think it will probably encourage more athletes to maybe go down this path. It opens the door so parents or adults can feel more comfortable with the industry. The industry is very intriguing. I think the athletes are incredible. We just want to make sure that at an amateur state that we just put some guardrails around it to make sure that athlete's protected.
Thank you for answering the questions.
Thank you. Floor Lady McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lines 23, shouldn't that be ISK squared A?
I think that would be an incorrect mathematical equation, saying that there's a B after the K, but we appreciate the effort.
On a serious note, going back to what the Secretary was talking about, you mentioned doctors and EMTs need to be present. Is that required, or is that a rule, or is that done by location of whether, who's holding the match or hosting the match? That's my only confusion. Like at a football game, high school football game, is a doctor always required to be there at a high school football game? I know you got certified trainers, but is it required to have a doctor for a basketball game, a wrestling match, a baseball game, when you got your certified trainer there?
Even when I played in the 80s, so Dr. Tom Price, who also served here, he was actually our team physician. And then up at the high schools where I've coached, we've always had a doctor there, which we were under the impression was required. And then you obviously have trainers, which ours came from Northeast Georgia over in Gainesville. And then you had the EMT and the ambulance service. I believe, I'll have to confirm, but I believe that the answer is yes, you need the doctor and the EMT there, but I'll have to confirm that. But I believe that's a correct statement.
Even for every sport, wrestling?
I don't know that for every sport that's the case. I think it's going to be more of the sport. I'll have to double check that.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. I don't see any other questions. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this bill? Is anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to the bill? Okay, well, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I make a motion that this bill do pass to go into full committee.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. And a second. If there is any other further comments in favor of the bill or opposed to the bill, please make them now.
I just hope the author will be able to answer some of these questions when we get to full committee that we're asked today.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We have a motion to pass this bill out of committee with a do pass recommendation. If you favor that motion, please say aye. If you oppose it, say no, and there is no opposition. Thank you so much, Representative Cox, for a good presentation. And we will advise Chairman Powell that this is passed out of this subcommittee and on to the full committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.